Welcome to The Verdict. I'm Kent Myers. As you can tell, Mick Cornett's not here today. He's off doing city business. Each week we bring to you guests that have a lot to say, a lot of good information that we think you're going to be interested in, and today is not any different. We are really pleased today to have back the Honorable Drew Edmondson, the Attorney General of the state of Oklahoma. He is coming back for his, believe it or not, his 9th appearance on our show, and always has a lot to talk about because out at his office in the Attorney General's sphere, there's always a lot going on. We hope that you will enjoy our show and welcome Drew back. He is always a delightful guest and very generous with his time. As I indicated, Mick will be back next week. But for now, you're watching The Verdict with me, and we'll be back after the break with Drew Edmondson.
What if America had its own clean energy? Abundant and available for the next century or more, and possibly indefinitely. A true 21st century energy source would cut carbon emissions in half and do every living thing a world of good. That clean American energy exists. It's natural gas, and Chesapeake is its #1 explorer. For producing clean electricity and fueling our cars without imported oil, natural gas saves money and the environment. Proving the answer to this country's energy needs is right under our feet. And we're not running out. Clean, abundant, affordable, American natural gas. Doing a world of good for our communities, our economy, and our irreplaceable planet Earth.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Myers sitting in by myself today. Mick Cornett will be back next week. We are pleased once again for the 9th time to welcome back the Honorable Drew Edmondson, the Attorney General of the state of Oklahoma. Drew was first elected Attorney General in 1994. He's been had myriad of experiences in the public sector. He's been a member of the legislature, was a district attorney for a number of years over in Muskogee County. During that time, he was elected president of the Oklahoma District Attorneys Association. Since he has been Attorney General, he's also served as president of the National Association of Attorneys General, quite an august body, frankly. He is a Vietnam vet, served in Vietnam in the Navy. He is a member of the negotiating team for the tobacco settlement, was one of the responsible persons in bringing back to Oklahoma an awful lot of money from the tobacco companies in regard to the settlement of the in multiple cases against them. Drew, welcome back.
Thank you, Kent. Great to be here.
Well, it's glad to have you, I'll tell you.
Hard to believe it's been 9 times, but...
Well, we knew when Mick was not going to be here that I needed a real reliable guest to come on to kind of help me carry the load.
Well, I know the drill.
Let's talk about something that makes the paper a lot. The poultry litigation or the chicken litter litigation or however it's referred to that you're handling for the state of Oklahoma.
It's generally referred to as the poultry litigation. We like to refer to it as the Illinois River litigation because that's what it's all about, is damage to the Illinois River watershed, we allege, because of wide-scale surface application of poultry waste, which is high in nitrogen, high in phosphorus, and to some extent that's a good thing. It makes it a good fertilizer. But when the phosphorus runs off into the water, it also causes algae blooms and ultimately sucks the oxygen out of the water, changes the biosphere, and it's a pollutant at that stage. And that's what's been happening in Illinois. And of course, it's a designated scenic river according to the laws of the state of Oklahoma, and it's entitled to special protection, and that's what we're trying to give it.
Is that runoff primarily taking place in Oklahoma, or is Arkansas involved in it in some respect?
Well, there are more in the Illinois River watershed, which is 1 million acres, roughly half in Arkansas and half in Oklahoma. There are at least twice as many poultry houses on the Arkansas side as there are in Oklahoma. So it's happening on both sides of the river, but there's more phosphorus going into the water as well as other things on the Arkansas side. That's why our regulations can't reach this problem. Our regulations can control what our farmers do and what our agricultural interests do, but they can't touch the practices on the other side of the border. So we're in federal court invoking federal law to try to clean up the water.
You're in the Northern District?
Northern District.
In Tulsa. When was that, what year was that case filed?
That case was filed in 2005, so we've been 4 years getting to this stage, and we were another 4 years before that in negotiations that proved unsuccessful. We're still hopeful that at some stage we'd rather hammer this out at a negotiating table than in a courtroom, but it looks like we're headed to court.
Well, so you've had a total really of 8 years of direct contact about this matter with your office. Have you noticed, or have your experts noticed any deterioration in that 8-year period in relation to the Illinois?
Well, actually, during that 8-year period, we reached an agreement with municipalities. In December 2003, we reached an agreement with municipalities on both sides of the border to limit their discharges to 1 part per million on phosphorus to reach a standard of .037, which we had established and had been approved by the EPA. So I wouldn't be surprised if there hadn't been some improvement since those improvements started going into effect in our municipal discharges. That leaves the largest single contributor to the pollution problem, the poultry industry, and that's what we're trying to address now.
And there's I guess the industry itself is just made up of a lot of farmers, large and small.
Well, the industry is over a dozen poultry companies that in turn contract with small farmers to grow the chickens. The poultry companies deliver the chickens as chicks and pick them up when they're full grown. The companies supply the feed, the medicine, they prescribe what the houses look like, they do everything. The farmer never owns the chicken unless it dies, in which event it becomes the property of the farmer. But those chickens are always the property of the poultry companies, and that's who we filed the lawsuit against. We have not sued any of the farmers.
Have the poultry companies been unwilling to agree to limitations similar to what the municipalities agreed to?
Well, the municipalities are a little bit different because they're dealing with point source discharges, and you can measure the amount of phosphorus in the point source discharges. The poultry companies are dealing with surface application, and that's a whole different standard. And I'm really not at liberty to characterize what may or may not have been said in any negotiations, but obviously we have not reached an agreement.
Well, what is the relief you're seeking for the people of the state of Oklahoma?
Well, we're seeking two things. One is injunctive relief, to where the industry could not allow surface application of any more than the plants can take up, an agronomic rate. If the plants need it, put it down and let the plants have the nitrogen and the phosphorus. If they don't need it, you're going to have to figure out some way to truck it out of the basin or do something else with it. That's on the injunctive side. And then we're also seeking damages and reclamation costs to restore the river and Lake Tenkiller to what it was.
If you're at liberty to say, has anybody quantified the damages with some certainty yet?
We will have a damage model to present, and the actual damages that we will present are huge. A settlement figure would be far lower than what I think we're going to be able to demonstrate are the actual damages at trial. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
And I presume that the poultry companies as a group could respond.
They have responded. They're quick to point out, the first line is, it's not us, it's the farmers. And that argument hadn't gotten them very far so far. And then they point out that there are other contributors, including municipalities, including golf courses, commercial nurseries, septic tanks, deer, possums, you know, and all of that's true.
Yeah.
We think we'll be able to demonstrate that they're the largest single remaining contributor to the problem.
What's your best guess about when you will go to trial, if you have to go to trial?
We have trial in September, and
It's set.
That's our schedule, is for trial in September.
Is that a jury trial or not?
It'll be a jury trial on the damage issues. On the injunctive relief, that'll probably be a decision of the court, and here, I'm not exactly sure how that's going to divide up, who's going to be in charge of which decisions, but it will be a jury trial. And I expect it will last a number of weeks.
I was going to ask you about how long the trial was. Several weeks, you'd think?
Several weeks. We went up on a preliminary injunction based on the human health impact of the surface application. And not dealing with the environmental side, but just the danger from E. coli, enterococci, Campylobacter, fecal coliforms getting into the water. And that hearing lasted 3 weeks. So it'll be a while on the full trial.
What's your, without telling our viewers exactly, or me exactly, what your scientific evidence is going to be, are you going to have a number of scientists testify about what's happening?
We will have a number of scientists. And, you know, let me back up just a second. When I was trying a DUI case back in Muskogee, I'd much rather just put the trooper on to say the guy was speeding and weaving. I pulled him over. He couldn't walk a straight line. He smelled of alcohol. He had slurred speech. His eyes were bloodshot. And a state rest. And what my experience is, if you put on a breathalyzer to say that the guy blew a breathalyzer that was twice the legal level for intoxication, then the whole trial's about the breathalyzer and the science involved. By the same token, you know, I would prefer to put on a case people who've lived there all their lives that say, here's what it used to look like, here's what it looks like now, and here's the change in the watershed, and that's the advent of huge factory farms for poultry. But we'll have geologists talking about the karst terrain and the fact that what's applied on the surface gets into the groundwater and goes to the surface water. And we'll have both chemical and biological analysis of the waste.
Okay, I need to jump in here and get us to a break. We're visiting with Drew Edmondson. Mick's not here today, but we'll be back next week, and we'll see you in just a couple of minutes.
My name is Wyatt Parker. I am 20 years old. I am a composer, and I am a Chickasaw. The way I prefer to express myself is through music. I like all the obvious guys, you know, Mozart, Beethoven. The way that I like to come up with music is really not to come up with it at all. I just like for it to kind of appear in my head. It's about listening. You have to be a good listener in music as in life. I would say the Chickasaw Nation stands for its people. I would want to be known as a Chickasaw composer who is trying to do great things with music. With all the opportunities that the Chickasaw Nation is offering its people, it's a great time to be a Chickasaw.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma Realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
And welcome back. Kent Myers here with the Attorney General, Drew Edmondson, making his 9th appearance on the verdict. Mick will be back next week. Drew, let's get away from poultry litigation and talk a little bit about what other things your office is involved in. I know you've got a very busy staff working all the time for the people of Oklahoma, so what's occupying their time?
Well, Kent, we stay active. The multi-county grand jury is getting ready to impanel a new grand jury that will happen this week. We've got work in our consumer protection division, some of which I think you're familiar with. But this time of year, all attention is focused on the 4th floor of the state capitol.
Yeah.
The legislature's in town and they have center stage. So we're spending an awful lot of time tracking legislation, either because we're interested in it being passed or because we think it might be damaging either to our office or to the state. So that kind of has our full attention until the end of May.
Are there any particularly significant bills that you're watching more closely than others that have an impact on your office?
Well, we're always interested in bills that deal with the areas where we're in litigation. And so we're watching to see if there are any bills, as there have been in the past, that affect the Illinois River lawsuit or our general powers and duties. We're interested in kind of an academic sense in the measures that will establish term limits for secondary offices. And we'll be watching those to see what happens. Other than that, we have the same interests that others do in measures to put the 10 Commandments on the Capitol grounds or to dealing with education, what can or can't be taught in our public schools. We watch those along with everybody else.
I think, of course, as a lawyer, I'm familiar with your duties insofar as rendering Attorney General opinions. Our viewers generally may not. Can you just briefly describe what you do in that regard?
Well, we get called upon to render official opinions on subjects of law, and the state Supreme Court has ruled that when we issue a formal opinion, it has the force and effect of law unless and until it's overturned by a court of competent jurisdiction. So we issue anywhere from 40 to 80 official opinions annually dealing with questions of state law. Typically, we do not issue formal opinions if it's a matter that's already in litigation or a subject of legislation. So we don't issue formal opinions on pending bills, but we do offer our services to legislators to help on pending bills, either in committee or privately. And as a matter of fact, I have done some consulting with legislators on the tort reform measure that's working through the House.
Now, who can request an opinion? Can just any citizen call you up and say, I'd like your opinion on something?
Any citizen can get one way or another, but they can't simply request one. They would
How
have
can
to
they do it?
go through their legislator. Most of our opinion requests come from legislators and also agency heads, department heads, members of the judiciary and district attorneys can also request AG opinions.
From time to time, we see newspaper articles about outside law firms representing the state or representing officers of the state. It seems to me that one could determine that there's a lot more legal business than there are members of your staff, because I presume if you could handle all those matters for all the agencies, you'd do so. But there's a limit to your capacity.
There is a limit, and we have in past years asked the legislature for additional, what we call FTEs, full-time equivalent employees, that are unassigned to particular duties, so we can say yes to more representation opportunities from state agencies. As it is, when they send us a request wanting to hire outside counsel, very often we're forced to say, go ahead and hire outside counsel because we don't have either the expertise or the individuals to fill that legal need. I think we could save the state millions of dollars by doing more of that business for state agencies if we had the people to do it. Because we bill the agencies $70 an hour, and they're paying outside law firms anywhere from $200 to $500 an hour for work that arguably we could be doing.
Well, in your 15 years or so as Attorney General, from the standpoint of number of lawyers available to you in your office. Has that number changed dramatically?
It's gone up, and it's gone up significantly. The legislature has given us additional duties and the people to accomplish them. They've expanded our consumer protection unit. They've expanded our multi-county grand jury division. They've given us jurisdiction over the domestic violence programs and overseeing the shelters around the state of Oklahoma. So they've assigned us additional tasks and have given us people specific to those tasks.
I know your office does both civil work, if you will, and criminal work.
Yes.
As a Muskogee County District Attorney, probably most of your work was criminal as opposed to civil. How is it at the Attorney General level?
It's probably the other way around. Most of our work in the AG's office is on the civil side, and it would be hugely that way if it were not for our criminal appeals section. We do handle the appeals of all criminal cases out of all 77 counties, but we do more civil than criminal. We have specific areas of jurisdiction in criminal through the multi-county grand jury or consumer protection, workers' compensation fraud, or Medicaid fraud. But if it's not in one of those particular areas, we're not like a super DA. We don't have the plenary jurisdiction to file any charge that we want to look at.
I want to ask this question, and I'll put a little preface to it. I've had a number of opportunities to work with members of your staff and have found every time them to be courteous, efficient, professional, and quite bright. What do you do in regard to recruiting or training to make sure that your staff stays that way?
Well, and it takes both. We're very careful on our recruiting. We depending on the particular job position that's open, we either take someone right out of law school or someone with equivalent experience to perform the task. We go through an interview process, usually headed up by the chief of the section where that job vacancy is. And then we continue after the person is brought in to do in-service training. We have quarterly full staff meetings where everybody can meet everybody else in the office. And Trent Corkin is our office administrator and goes to great lengths to keep morale up, spirit up, and people motivated.
We got a couple of minutes left. I know you have announced that you're not running for re-election. Just real briefly, because I want to get beyond this, but just real briefly, how do you see the race shaping up for Attorney General's office in 2010?
Well, we have several people who have said that they're looking at it and some that continue to be rumored about it. On the Democratic side, Senator Tom Adelson has expressed some interest in the job, and there's been some rumors that if Scott Meacham does not run for governor, that he might take a look at the Attorney General's office. And I'd be very surprised with 27 DAs out there if some of the DAs wouldn't also be interested. On the Republican side, Ryan Leonard has announced publicly that he's interested in the job. He's a former prosecutor, now in private practice, a very talented young man. And Glenn Coffey, the president of the Senate, has also been talked about in terms of an AG race.
Got 1 minute left. What's Drew Edmondson going to do after he's no longer Attorney General?
Well, we switched our Edmondson 2010 campaign over from our Attorney General to Governor, and I'm taking a real close look at the governor's race, and we'll probably announce after Labor Day this year whether I feel the support is out there to do that. So far, it's been very positive and very good. There's been one poll run, not by us, that showed good numbers. So if I continue to be successful in my fundraising and getting good response from folks when I visit, I'll probably be announcing a race for governor later on this year.
Keep us informed about that, because we want you to come back and talk about that when that is firm. We've got to sign off here because we're out of time. You've been watching The Verdict with Attorney General Drew Edmondson. I'll be right back.
It's time to meet the new people in power.
The people responsible for our energy future.
It's you.
It's me. All of us together.
From now on, we're the people in power.
OG&E will supply the power.
It's how we apply the power that counts.
We've got to use electricity smarter,
Wiser.
cleaner,
Better.
So we've got to be informed,
Equipped. Prepared.
Committed.
From now on. Look, nobody wants to waste energy. Nobody wants to build new power plants.
Nobody wants to pay more for electricity.
But nobody wants to give up their way of life.
We don't have to.
If we just use positive energy together.
I'll take advantage of off-peak hours.
That means cutting energy use from 1 to 7 every day.
Every day. I'm going to sign up for more and more wind power.
We'll take advantage of the high-tech tools coming soon from OG&E.
OG&E can't do it alone.
It's you and OG&E working together.
Find dozens of ways you can help at OGE.com.
A positive energy future is in our power. Together.
And Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leaving it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go for it. Wiggins had to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of the verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
We're out of time. For Mick Cornett, happy Easter, and we'll see you next week.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.